Part 104. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1034. Gretel left 100 vaccines. Ms. Ashuej left her contact information and the promise I will write a letter back to the fertile forest to help you ask. Sirara didn't leave anything behind. She ate several good meals at Ms. Jasmine's shop and returned with a large bag of seafood. Of course, she caught most of the seafood herself, and also filled the warehouse of Ms. Jasmine's shop. In short, there were 3 people and a deer when they came, and 4 people and a deer when they returned, heading back to the capital of the Eagle Kingdom. Walk through jungles, cross rivers, pass through villages, climb mountains, and set foot on plateaus. As soon as I returned to the center of Tenok City, I saw the excitement in front. Come out all! Come out all! In markets, workshops, and households, there were samurai knocking on every door or kicking open the door, pushing and shoving people out. Whether you are baking corn tortillas or making pottery, sweeping the yard or feeding the children, one by one, they are all blasted out and carried to the square to line up. Wait. I put out the stove. My pottery wheel snapped. Wow. The adults yelled and the children yelled, but the warriors responsible for chasing people away didn't care. As for the corn, clay, or other things in those people's hands that were spilled on the floor, or they were rushing too fast and fell, or the children were crying, these people didn't care at all. Why are they like this? Ashmoon Song looked unhappy. Greet's face was not good looking either, but he did not interfere and gently gave her a hand. Shhh. This is their own business and we don't need to worry about it. Ashmoon Song snorted. As a forest guard, she often interacts with the indigenous people inside and on the edge of the fertile forest, and has seen a lot of the behavior of the indigenous tribes. At the moment, he had no intention of intervening. He just walked slowly towards the square and watched curiously. A large group of people were already standing in the square. The nobles of the Eagle Kingdom stood neatly on both sides of the snake god pyramid according to their respective statuses. Further down, there is a phalanx, another phalanx, some look like warriors, and some look like servants of the nobles, occupying almost half of the square. The pyramid of the snake god is filled with priestesses of all levels from top to bottom. Chiwakoto was surrounded by 6 female snakes, standing high on the top of the pyramid, waving to the bottom. The sacrifice begins. Bang bang. Bang bang. The heavy tree drum was beaten vigorously. Amidst the sound of drums, the warriors came forward in groups, dragging and carrying the sacrifices. Gretel couldn't help but say hey. The sacrifices brought up this time are no longer human beings, prisoners of war, slaves, or other human beings. The 4 warriors in front were carrying a jaguar with golden, satin-like fur, which was hung upside down on a wooden pole by its 4 paws, roaring and roaring. The next 8 warriors, 2 in pairs and 2 in pairs, carried a huge crocodile. The body is dark and shiny, like armor, and the tail alone is longer than the warrior's height. Next, there was a giant python as thick as a bowl, an orangutan larger than a human, and several ferocious beasts that Gretel couldn't name. They don't use living people for blood sacrifices. Gretel whispered. The soldiers carried the beasts to the pyramid one after another. Chiwakoto personally held the sword, killed them one by one, and cut out their hearts. 6 female snakes took over the rest of the work, cutting off heads, crushing skulls, removing internal organs, and draining the blood. On the pyramid, black mist gradually gushes out, and even a creepy hissing sound is heard. That kind of movement is like the snake god coming in person and coming out to enjoy the sacrifice. Sarala frowned slightly and turned her head away from the scene of the sacrifice. Greet watched and observed with great interest. With a glance, several mages appeared across the square, carrying instruments and pointing them in the direction of the snake god pyramid. It seemed like they were measuring the energy intensity. Seeing Gretel looking over, they waved their arms and said hello with a smile. Greet also smiled. It seems that the negotiations between Archmage Haynes and the snake god have been fruitful. At least this time, they no longer need human sacrifice. After all the sacrifices of the monsters were completed, some people came out from each square to offer sacrifices to the pyramid. Greet cast an eagle eye spell on himself and saw clearly that the sacrifice looked like a poorly made pottery figurine, with spots on it that looked like bloodstains. In the phalanx at the back, there were people passing around knives, pricking their fingers or cutting their chests one by one, staining the blood on the pottery figurines, preparing to send them to the pyramid. The one who started it has no consequences. Gretel muttered softly. But then again, using pottery figurines instead of human sacrifices is still an improvement. As for the bloodstained, it was probably used in place of the sacrificer himself, right? Most of the pottery figurines were presented, and the black fog around the pyramid was getting thicker and thicker. Finally, the sound of the tree drum changed to a different tune, and a uniform shout rang out from the square. By the will of the snake god, the noble Chiwakoto will grant everyone the blessings of the snake god. With an order, the soldiers maintaining order ordered everyone to get as close as possible, squeeze in as tightly as possible, and kneel down collectively. Shoulders touch shoulders, calves touch calves, and the average floor space per person is less than 0.25 square meters by visual inspection. After all the natives in the square knelt down, Chiwakato took a few steps forward and raised his hands high. One hand is holding a snake staff, the other hand is holding a test tube, and the voice is like crying, like singing, like chanting, singing poems praising the snake god. Gretel didn't understand a word anyway. Language proficiency didn't work either. He could even misunderstand most of the lyrics of Chinese songs, and he couldn't understand even the sentences of Aboriginal chants. As he chanted, a thin black mist slowly rose up, covering Chiwakoto's body, especially the test tube. Hey, this glass test tube looks familiar? Is it produced by the Research Institute? Cyrilla quietly came over and asked in his ear. Even though he knew they were far away and the local natives couldn't understand what they were saying, Greet still shook his hand vigorously. SHH. It was agreed that the parliament would provide vaccines so that the snake god could harvest those who believed in the name of God. Don't expose it at this time. If exposed, vaccines cannot be sold, faith cannot be harvested, and blood sacrifices cannot be stopped. If the Eagle Kingdom continues to use adventurers as living sacrifices, they will have no reason to hold on. Ashu Isong looked curiously at the female snakes on the pyramid, and then at Gretel and the others. Gretel gave her a "I'll explain it to you later" look and continued to observe the scene in front of her. The black mist is getting thicker and thicker, condensing into a rough snake shape around the pyramid. Gradually, the snake lowered its head, its eyes shining brightly, revealing two faint green lights. At first glance, it really looks like the snake god has arrived. Seeing this, the citizens, servants, and even soldiers kneeling on the ground began to tremble. Many of them grabbed the ground with their heads and shouted "Snake God" and "Great Snake God." Even the Golden Eagle and White Eagle warriors who presented the sacrifices knelt on the ground and bowed their heads respectfully. At $%. When the brightness of the green light reached its highest level, Chiwakoto's chant suddenly reached a high pitch. She raised her hands and touched it. There was a soft sound of glass breaking, and the test tube smashed directly on the snake staff. In the name of the snake god, I grant you blessings and protect you from the torture of yellow fever. Black mist surged down. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1035. Black mist surged down. Gretel's eyes lit up, and he took 2 steps forward, and then 2 more steps. Walked 2 or 3 meters to the edge of the square array, stretched out his hand, and touched the black mist. Thin mist flows from the fingertips, twisting and turning, slightly moist. It feels like a mixture of cloud and mist and fog of disease. It's a bit similar to my magic idea, isn't it? Beside him, Ashuedge coughed hard. With a hook of his hand, a wisp of breeze was sent out, and he pulled hard on Greet's sleeve. When Greet came back to his senses, he saw quite a few people among the people kneeling on the ground glaring at him. It was just because he was an outside magician during the sacrifice period that it was difficult to jump up and beat him. Even so, his face was dark and his knuckles were cracking. Gretel smiled apologetically and backed away quickly. He retreated to Cyrilla and others, closed his eyes slightly, extended his mental power, and felt the magic fluctuations of the black mist. It seems, in short, it is indeed a bit similar to the disease technique, but how is it different? Maybe the difference is the difference between the snake god using his divine power to activate the vaccine, and the magic to activate the vaccine. Greet closed her eyes, analyzed and experienced it carefully, and compared it with the spell model and the method of the plague girl in her memory. On the other side of the square, a group of magicians also set up their instruments and were busy. The type of magic wave tends towards the necromantic system, and has the same properties as the disease spell. Similar magical power detected. The intensity of the fluctuation is level 3, but the coverage is more than 10 times that of ordinary level 3 spells. It can be said to be very economical. The power of divine magic is rather cold. Black mist overflowed in waves. Generally speaking, the phalanx below sent a pottery figurine, and a black mist flowed from it, gently covering the crowd in the phalanx. As the breeze blew, the black fog on the top of the pyramid opened and closed. Gretel seemed to see 2 female snakes beside Chiwakoto bending down constantly to take out things and hand them to her. Translucent, shiny, broken one by one. So each spell cast consumes a vial of vaccine? Good. In this case, the vaccine can be sold more and some development costs can be recovered at least. Well, although, it seems that apart from the labor cost, all other materials owned by the Eagle Country are paid for by the Eagle Country. Gretel worked hard to analyze and think hard. Next to her, AI-11 stared at the crowd kneeling in the square, staring at the black mist that lingered, with a solemn gaze. Plague, I smelled the plague in the mist. I have seen the snake god before. He is not an evil god. Why? Oh, this is a vaccine. Vaccines are also made from pathogenic factors. Cyrilla interrupted her doubts with a smile. The silver dragon girl tried her best to smell the black mist, then turned to look at Gretel, the corners of her mouth raised and her eyes shining. This is Gretel's invention. Use fog of disease to vaccinate a large area, gather people together, and cast a spell with a wave of your hand. Save manpower and materials, no need to transport a large number of syringes and injection needles, and avoid cross-infection. Of course, the most important thing is to have a vaccine. Gretel is the best. In a shabby place like the Eagle Country, there is no glass workshop or dwarf factory. You can rely on the little monster's gold coins to rub the syringes one by one. The efficiency is simply, it is still more convenient to use the fog of disease. Simple. Only Bernard didn't care. The barbarian turned his left foot to his right foot, and his right foot to his left foot, observing the surroundings of the square boredly, paying no attention to the subtle spell fluctuations in front of him. After standing for a while, seeing that Gretel had no intention of leaving, he simply turned behind Appa, took out a big chicken drumstick and started to chew on it. Nibble one for yourself, and then give another one to Appa. The snake god's blessing, or large-scale spell inoculation event, lasted for a full 2 hours. Greet stood nearby for 2 hours, analyzing spell fluctuations, taking notes, and sensing the situation of the vaccinators. He was extremely busy. Hey, it's a pity that there is no way to test for antibodies. We can only use effectiveness tests to judge whether the vaccination is successful or not, and whether there is any protective effect. It would be great if there was a way to test for antibodies. He muttered. When the sacrifice was over, the crowd began to disperse, and suddenly a group of warriors walked down from the pyramid. After stopping a few phalanxes and taking them to the alley next to them, Gretel soon heard shouts and cries coming from the other side of the alley. What's the matter? Greet became curious. If you look closer, you will see that the phalanxes are either civilians, businessmen, craftsmen, or servants of the nobles. The mess was huddled together in a large courtyard. There were several magicians at the end of the courtyard, holding syringes and drawing blood one by one. Draw blood. By the way, draw blood. Gretel's eyes lit up. To test for antibodies, there is another way. Inject blood with antibodies into the patient to see if the patient can acquire resistance. Of course, this method is very dangerous and may trigger an immune storm, so it cannot be used frequently. However, you can try it with mice or something. By the way, you can also use blood identification technique to scan wildly. Unvaccinated mice, vaccinated mice. Unvaccinated rabbits, vaccinated rabbits. Unvaccinated monkeys, vaccinated monkeys. Those who have not been vaccinated, those who have been vaccinated. Big data is stacking up like crazy. If there is a certain substance that is not present in unvaccinated blood but is present in vaccinated blood, then this thing must be an antibody. Gretel was gearing up for a moment. This batch is too late, but for the next batch, we must make an agreement with Archmage Haynes and the Snake God priests. Blood samples must be taken before and after. Mage Nordmark, you are back. The magicians who were drawing blood saw Gretel looking outside, and someone came over immediately. He grabbed Gretel and said in an excited tone. Archmaster Heinz has negotiated with them. We currently need a large amount of vaccines, and our production is running out. Fortunately, you are back. Hurry up and preside over it. Well. How many vaccines do you need? You don't want to accomplish this in one battle and inoculate everyone in the Eagle Country, at least everyone in Tenok City and the mountain lakeside, against yellow fever in a short period of time. Vaccine against disease. This thing is no better than the cowpox vaccine. The calves under the White Horn King are huge. One calf can harvest vaccines for tens of thousands of people. The yellow fever vaccine is made of chicken embryos. Are you going to kill the entire city? Have you collected all the eggs? At least leave a few to hatch a batch of chicks, and don't make the chickens in the Eagle Country extinct. Greet breathed in and out. He raised a smile, grabbed Ashuedge, and pushed him to Archmage Zhonings who was hosting the scene. Look. I have invited a son of nature for you to help produce vaccines together. Ashmoon Song. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1036. So the situation is like this. This is the forest guard of the fertile forest, the elf Ashmoon Song, a master of natural magic. I specially invited her to come here to help improve the vaccine cultivation. An hour later, Gretel strolled through the institute and introduced Ashmoon Song to the necromancers. On the left, Archmage Hein's pale and swollen face barely managed a smile, and the edge of his black robe fluttered slightly. On the right side, Ashuedge's whole body was tense and her body was leaning forward, as if she could bounce high at any time and anywhere. The roots of her short hair were standing up, and the white flower crowns on her hair were shining brightly. Gretel even saw that her pointed ears had become a little rounder. "Sister, don't become a leopard. Don't turn into a leopard here." Although the necromancer and the nature priest have always hated each other, they can't work together. Should I yell don't fight dash? No, they didn't fight at all. If they wanted to shout, they would just shout, "You guys, don't fight." Gretel quickly grabbed Ashu Isong and pulled her into the research area. Archmage Heinz was a little behind and snorted. This elf had better not cause trouble in the institute. Otherwise, even if she is an elf, she will not be ruthless. As a level 18 necromancer, he has full confidence that he can take her down with the help of the underground mage tower center. After Ashu Edge walked out for a few dozen steps, she focused on the work of the institute. While walking and visiting, I listened to Greet's introduction. This is the place where vaccines are tested. Each batch of vaccines must be randomly inspected to determine the safety and protective efficacy before they can be delivered for use. Ashu Isong looked through the large glass window at the dead people who were busy wearing white robes. Gretel ordered every necromancer to wear a white coat, and black robes for mages were not allowed, protective clothing, and gloves. The eyes of the spiritual mages gradually softened. Although they were catching the mice, injecting them, and releasing them, their every move followed certain rules and they were extremely gentle and careful. His expression was focused, without any indulging in the pleasure of killing. Ashu Edge even heard someone muttering, "You must live, this one must live, I don't want to kill another one. Leave it to the skeleton to do your clumsy work. Don't lighten the weight every time. The mouse ran away, the mouse was pinched by you, and the mouse was pinched to death by you." Ashu Edge couldn't help but smile, feeling a little more relieved about Gretel. After walking through the inspection area, we came to the vaccine production area. Through the glass, we saw rows of eggs on the shelves. The necromancers touch the eggs one by one, inject the eggs, put the eggs back, fix the eggs, shake the eggs, maintain the temperature. In the next room, the eggs were broken one by one, and the half-hatched chicks were picked up by the hands of the mage. Following the wind blade whirling, the chicken head was cut off, and the chicken body fell into a special vat. A bucket was filled and was taken away directly by the hands of the high mage. Ashu Edge frowned more and more as she watched. In just this moment, dozens of chicks that had not broken out of their shells had been brutally killed. That pure life was suddenly interrupted, and the cold and cruel breath of death made her feel extremely uncomfortable. If Greet hadn't been accompanying her attentively and showing her calmness, she might have turned away and left. Even so, her face became colder and colder, making Greet a little frightened. Fortunately, Lin saved Gretel. The necromancer, with the cat cub lying on his shoulder, hurried over with a thick stack of information and piled the information on the floating disk with a bang. Greet breathed a sigh of relief, quickly picked up a book and showed it to Ashu Isong. You see, this is the current method of vaccine production. Inject the cultured stable attenuated strain into chicken embryos, let the chicken embryos grow for a few days, harvest and process them to become vaccines. The advantage is that the cost is low and the disadvantage of mass production is. The disadvantage is that it causes too much killing. Ashu Edge frowned. Seeing the dense data in the production records, she finally understood why she felt so many deaths in the research institute. Doing a strain pass requires killing dozens of mice. Doing a stability verification requires killing dozens of mice. To make a vaccine, on average, each vaccine kills a chick that is still in the egg. Even if there are reasons why chicken embryos grow unstable and die after being raised, such killing is really shocking. Naturally, I am not opposed to killing, but I hate unnecessary killing. Newly born suckling rats, unhatched eggs, such pure and innocent creatures were massacred. Even if there was a reason, he was afraid of Gretel's corruption. So I need your help. Greet spread his hands and said with an innocent face. Sister Uge, look at the mortality rate of these chicken embryos, they are so stupid. A batch of eggs can kill half of them. If you teach them, even if these chicks can live for 10 or 8 days, it will be reduced. Half the killing, isn't it? Sister Uge, if you can produce more vaccines, you can give more, the current test results are. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at Archmage Haynes, who was hanging behind him. Archmage Haynes didn't even think about it. 100 copies. 100 copies. In other words, tens of thousands of chicks would be needed to vaccinate Tenok City and the residents on the plateau. If we want to vaccinate the indigenous people in the surrounding jungle, we will need hundreds of thousands of chicks. If we still need to vaccinate adventurers from afar, considering that the adventurers may not necessarily come in large numbers, the utilization rate of the vaccine will be lower, and more chicken embryos will be needed. Sister Uge, can you teach them how to raise chickens first? Greet requested sincerely. Make an assembly line of how to raise chickens. What is the density of raising hens, what kind of feed should be fed, raising temperature, raising humidity, how often to clean the cage, then the incubation temperature of the eggs should be accurate to 0.1 degrees. How often should you turn the eggs? He talked incessantly, talking about one breeding condition, bending one finger, another, and another. At the end he said, Sister Uge, if you teach them to standardize it, you can prevent the death of many chicks. They don't know how to grow and feel comfortable when a chick is in an egg. You are a person close to nature. You can feel it. Arrive. How about you? Ashmoon Song blurted out. Without waiting for Greet to answer, he asked a barrage of questions. Don't you understand this? Don't you know how to communicate with animals, even animals in eggs? I remember you are a level 10 nature priest. Well, needless to say, I'm here to help you. When the work is over, you can follow me and study hard. You must make up for the course of communicating with animals. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. The rankings of monthly tickets and recommended tickets have dropped drastically, why don't you guys give me a few? These days I have been reading The End of the Song Dynasty recommended by readers. The protagonist is resolute, decisive, and intelligent. Watching his series of actions north of the Huayi River in the late Southern Song Dynasty is like watching a spy movie. The author also has a solid foundation in literature and history, and his descriptions of the local customs are vivid. Just, very frustrated, I feel like I can never reach this level in my life. JPG. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1037. Chapter 1034 Ashu Isong's Devil Training. The temperature is too low, it's uncomfortable. Turn it up 0.1 degrees. It's not enough, adjust it again. Tune it again. The temperature of this box is too high. Lower it by 0.1 degrees. Tune it again. Turn over. Turn over. She gave a command and the necromancer responsible for taking care of the eggs made an action. Adjust, record, observe, record again. A group of necromancers quickly transitioned from why did this elf suddenly land to guide us to she seems to have some ability, and within a few days, transitioned to this elf is so powerful. My group of people worked so hard that not only half of the eggs they raised died, but if they were lucky, 20% would die, and if they were unlucky, more than 30% would die. This elf walked all the way from the egg room with his hands behind his back, pointing and issuing a series of orders without even looking. After following her instructions, out of a batch of 100 eggs, only 3 died. 3. Sister, why didn't you come to guide us earlier? If you came to guide us earlier, we wouldn't have to work in vain every day and be scolded by the Archmage leading the team every day. The necromancers looked at Ashu Isang and wished they could kneel down and worship her, or sacrifice her directly. Ashuej looked at Gretel with eyes full of hatred that iron could not be transformed into steel. She almost wanted to stuff him into an egg and recreate him. Do you feel it? Feel any signs of life in this egg? Do you feel like this chick is cold or hot? Which one of these eggs is about to die? Why so slow? If you are so insensitive to nature, you will suffer big losses on the battlefield. Are you really a level 10 nature priest? This perception is worse than even an apprentice. Gretel, you must feel it, and I can feel it too. Isn't this laziness? Why do you have to let me go if you leave so many necromancers behind? Besides, I won't stay in this research institute forever, I have to leave it to them. Just improve the process and teach them how to do research, right? It's not like the nature priest helps every time he researches something. Archmage Hines didn't write a letter back to negotiate a regular cooperation with the nature cult. After Ashuej walked around the egg room, she walked around the mouse area, rabbit area, and monkey area one by one. With a gentle smile on her lips, she stretched out her fingertips and pressed them through the glass. Good. Those mice, rabbits, and monkeys were usually either in a state of stress or in a state of indifference. They all pounced on each other and scraped against the glass. Greet was horrified to see. Sister Uge, don't give them the power of nature. If you change their physique, it will change the results of the experiment. Who gave them the power of nature? Ashuej rolled his eyes at Gretel. As a natural priest, even if you restrain your aura, you will naturally be welcomed by animals. Can't you do it? How can you not do it? Come here, try it and show me. I always feel that they will die in my hands. Gretel walked over sadly, muttering as he walked. If you don't die today, you will die tomorrow, if you don't die tomorrow, you will die someday in the future. In short, I raised them just to let them die. AI-11 Uge frowned coldly. Gretel put his hand on the glass with a grimace, slightly releasing his sense of presence. Sure enough, the mice in that cage spread out in a swipe, drilling shavings, and sticking to the opposite cage wall. Some were so panicked that they even knocked over the sink and got covered in water. Greet had to throw a cleaning spell in to dry the water stains on its fur. Then, he stood up straight and spread his hands to AI-11 Uge. It's not that I don't work hard, but the mice don't give me face. Please don't force me anymore. If you force me anymore, there will be no good except forcing a few mice to death. Ashmoon Song let out a long sigh. As a high-level nature servant, she naturally felt the aura released by Gretel at that moment. The natural affinity is true, and it is true that these mice will be killed by themselves, or killed under their own orders. And the aura he naturally exuded was sensed by the mice, and it was normal for them to panic and fear. To be able to exude such an aura, Gretel's natural affinity ability is actually quite high, it's just that he doesn't know how to use it. Let's take him out of the research institute and into the surrounding jungle to train him again. With this idea in mind, after Ashuej sorted out the entire chicken embryo production process, she began to carry Gretel out of the institute and went to the surrounding areas for training. Soon, the elf forest guard received another blow. You, listen to nature, the sounds of animals and plants, do you need to actively activate it? Aren't the sounds of nature surrounding you all the time? You, don't know if the fruit of this tree can be eaten? Don't you know that this leaf will be stung if you touch it? Don't you know that these ants can bite people? Didn't they tell you? You are walking in the jungle, why are you so clumsy? Where is your transformation skill? What? No. Even a human, a level 5 nature priest, can at least transform in one way. In Ashmoonsong's concept, elves who take the path of communicating with and serving nature can basically walk through the jungle, climb, jump, and swim without any hindrance. Soon, they will learn their first form of shape-shifting, usually wolf form, although some also choose bear and deer forms. After a little more maturity, probably close to adulthood, when you can walk out of the forest independently, you will usually become proficient in 2 or 3 animal forms. Particularly outstanding, you can also master a flying form. Of course, some people choose to transform into plants, or delve into partial transformation, growing 1 or 2 pairs of arms, growing unicorn horns, or growing a pair of strong and powerful wings. Like herself, she can freely switch between panther form, wolf form, bear form, kestrel form, several smaller cat forms, and python form. And the strongest elders can even turn into giant dragons, super-level monsters, or even transform into elemental giants. Gretel is already a level 10 nature priest, but he doesn't know any of them. Learn from me. Practice for me. Within this month, learn at least one kind, otherwise, don't ask me to help you. Gretel, T. I don't know how to do transfiguration. I just can't. There are spell models in the council, all kinds of them, from general templates to private vaults. In the inheritance that comes with the oak staff, there are several transformation techniques, including wolf, leopard, and deer. In the inheritance place on Iolan Island, he was also given a lot of knowledge. But I can't learn. If you can't learn, you just can't learn what to do. What should I do if the spell model can be constructed, but it fails every time it is released? Change quickly. Ash Moonsong suddenly turned into a black panther. Transform and run. If you can't run away from me, I'll bite you. Wow dash. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to Ed for the 1,500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1038. Chapter 1035. Don't hit me when I come down. You promise. Change. Change quickly. I can't change it. It's very simple. Just like this. Ashu Edge stood still on the ground, and suddenly pounced down, and a black panther appeared on the ground. Jumping up the tree again, looking back, there was already a kestrel standing high in the tree. The kestrel spread its wings and flew high, landing on Gretel's shoulder. The wings flapped gently twice, then suddenly changed again. A huge black bear suddenly appeared and pressed Gretel to the ground. I really can't change. Sister Uge, I really can't change. Greet got up sadly. Fortunately, Ashu Isong stopped her strength at the last moment and transformed from a black bear into a tiger cat more than 2 feet long. She squatted lightly on Gretel's shoulder, and then jumped away lightly. Coupled with Gretel's improved reaction speed, he shot a floating disc under his body in time, and finally he didn't fall into disgrace, and his palms and knees were all scraped. He stood up and dusted himself off. Just as he was about to take a breath, the grey wolf transformed from the tiger cat pounced on him again. Hurry up! Help dash! In the end, Gretel hung on a tree with his hands and feet, hugging the trunk and refusing to come down. The grey wolf circled around under the tree and kept growling. A little further under the tree, Sarah pulled his hands. They gathered into a trumpet shape and kept shouting. Gretel, change. Change quickly. It's not difficult. Look, you can become an elf this way, and you can become a human this way. Don't you want to become a silver dragon and fly with me? Gretel, T. I really want to, but I have to do it. Obviously, there are 3 ring spells such as basic dragon form that can turn into a pseudo-dragon, 6 ring spells like second dragon form that can turn into a juvenile dragon, and 9 ring spells that can even turn into a mature dragon. But I just can't do it. Every time I try, I fail every time. Unlike other magic, even if you don't understand the principle, memorize the spell model, and cast the spell with your eyes closed, you can still succeed. What on earth don't you understand? Tell me. Ash Moonsong paved the ground angrily. Greed hugged the tree trunk tightly, turned her head slightly, and glanced at her from the corner of her eye. I don't understand anything. Come down and tell me. You can't hit me. If you can't learn, I can't hit you anymore. Okay, okay, I won't hit you. You promise? After a moment of panic, Gretel slowly climbed down the tree trunk and stood warily in front of Ash Moonsong. The left foot steps forward, the right foot drags behind, the knees are slightly bent, as if ready to escape at any time. Sister Uge, how do you manage to become so heavy and light again when you transform? That's right, Greed rubbed his shoulders with his backhand and gestured, it's so light when it turns into a kestrel, and then it's so heavy when it turns into a bear. Isn't this normal? Ashuej's eyes widened. The kestrel is supposed to be so light, and the bear is supposed to be so heavy. As long as you transform successfully, you will be so light and so heavy. But where did those weights change? Greed looked puzzled. The ones that have become heavier, what has been filled in? Magic power? The ones that have become lighter, where is the weight hidden? And the muscles, bones, and organs, have these things changed? Stop, 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 Ashuej stopped with a headache on his face. These things seemed to have been mentioned by the elders on Elf Island back then, but they seemed not to have been mentioned at all. Damn it, if she could study this thoroughly, she would have stayed on Elf Island to maintain the mystery lock. Why go to the fertile forest and become a forest guard? It's not this kind of transformation, fighting, I can understand it, I can learn it, but I can't explain why. Oh. You just change like this. Just change like this, you can change anyway. If you change successfully, I will teach you how to move and fight in the transformed state. Sister Uge, wait a minute, let me study it, can I study it first? Okay. I want to see how you study it. Then, Ashuej was brought back to the institute and brought to a special laboratory. There, Gretel caught a rabbit, weighed it, recorded its shape, scanned it with detection magic, shaved off a piece of fur and observed it with ultrasound, recorded it with EKG magic and blood pressure magic, and also drew a small tube of blood. After busy for a long time, when Ashuej was already a little impatient, Greed turned around and raised a smile to her. Sister Uge, please change it into another form, deer, sheep, anything. It's best to be bigger, so you can tell the difference at a glance. Transfiguring others and transforming yourself are not the same spell. Ash Moonsong muttered, but still reached out and petted the rabbit. A flash of light green light flashed, and the rabbit lying there turned into a goat on the spot. The goat looked around in panic, took a step forward and wanted to run, but within 2 steps, it tripped on its front hooves and fell down. Ashuesong held it in time and turned to look at Gretel. Look, I just transformed. My perspective is wrong, my walking method is wrong, and I can't control my limbs. That's what it looks like, so you have to practice hard. Transformation is not difficult, but the difficulty is the movement and fighting after transformation. Sister Uge, wait. Put it down. Put it down. Yes, put it on the scale, let me weigh it again. Wow, the weight has increased 10 times, don't let it go. Fix it, let me test again. The second wave of observations begins: X-ray, B ultrasound, electrocardiogram, blood pressure, blood draw. The bone shape has indeed changed. X-rays and B ultrasounds show that the size of the organs has also changed. The heartbeat has slowed down from 190 beats/min to 80 beats/min. Greed closed his eyes slightly and read the recorded data from the core of meditation, comparing them one by one. The change in blood pressure is not big, but I don't know if it is not much different because of the normal value, the breathing rate slowed down from 55 times/min to 15 times/min, which shows that the cardiovascular system, respiratory system, and organs have indeed undergone changes. Changes, but don't think so much, AI-11UGE finally understood. Just because I understood it, I got even more headache. She let go of the goat, grabbed Gretel's shoulders, and shook her hard. Listen, the core of transformation, and all magic, is belief. Believe. Believe. Firm willpower, believe that you can succeed. Coupled with your understanding of the object of change, you can change if you want. Sister Uge, please let go. Gretel was shaken forward and backward by her shoulders hurt from the pinch, and she struggled hard. I can practice, I can practice. Wait until I study and understand. By the way, Sister Uge, can you help the Research Institute solve another problem? Once this problem is solved, there will be no need to kill chickens when making vaccines in the future. What's the problem? I'll go take a look. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1039. Chapter 1036. Sister Uge, please slowly raise your cells, slip away. Look, now I'm trying another method, cultivating the pathogenic factors in large quantities. Greet walked with Ashu Isong in the culture room of the cell group. The elf ranger wore a heavy isolation gown, which made a muffled sound on the floor step by step, which was quite unaccustomed to him. Take a few steps, shrug your shoulders, take a few more steps, twitch your long ears. However, seeing that the entire cell group was facing a formidable enemy, and that every working necromancer was dressed in such a uniform and had to operate in a special cabinet, Ashmoon Song could only obey the crowd. Enduring the discomfort, I listened to Gretel say. The pathogenic factors can grow in mice, rabbits, monkeys, and chickens, mainly in certain organs. When we made tissue sections, we observed cell degeneration. It can be seen that the pathogenic factors are growing in cells. Wait a minute, what are cells? Greet shrugged. Just waiting for you to ask this, pique your interest so that we can start from the basics. He took AIZ to operate the microscope, allowing her to see with her own eyes the organ tissues, normal cells, and pathological tissue sections after infection under the microscope. After establishing the concept of pathogenic factors growing in cells, we continue. I thought, as long as the cells can grow independently outside the body and the pathogenic factors proliferate inside, wouldn't it be possible to eliminate the need to kill the chickens? However, they have not been able to do this so far, so I thought please ask Sister Uge to help me. Ashmoon Song was at a loss. In her beautiful emerald green eyes, there were circles of ripples, referred to as dizziness. She looked at Greet, then at the pile of bottles and jars in front of her, then at Gretel, and then at the bottles and jars. The paste inside. Are you too confident in me? Huh, the elf forest guard complained from the bottom of his heart. Although I am good at communicating with nature, that only means that I am good at communicating with animals, plants, and the earth. A mouse, no problem, a rabbit, no problem, but a piece of liver from a mouse, inside how can I communicate with the scraped paste? Sister Uge, don't worry. Gretel was all smiles. He took the elf forest guard to another empty house, raised his hand, and lined up another set of treasures. Large jars, small jars, various pipes, mixing tanks, penicillin production line. Sister Uge, look, this is the Parliament's production line for penicillin, a special drug used to suppress many diseases and injuries. The key to this production line is to allow the penicillium species to grow in large numbers. As he spoke, he took a bottle, added distilled water, cornstarch, stirred, adjusted the temperature, finally, added the bacteria, carefully added little by little, and stirred. He tilted his head slightly, as if he was communicating something while working. Ash Moonsong's face was serious. The mental power stretched out and wrapped around Greet, the bottle in Greet's hand, and the bacteria that had begun to grow in the bottle. Gretel picked out some more strains of bacteria, spread them in a petri dish, and asked her to take a look. "You can see it more clearly under the microscope, Sister Uge, look, they look like this." Ash Moonsong became much more familiar with the microscope this time. He lay down on the eyepiece and looked carefully at the penicillin under the microscope. After reading this, Greet had already placed the sterile flask on the table and pointed to her. "Communicate with the penicillium inside, sense their needs, and provide them with the most suitable environment so that they can grow at the fastest speed. Give them a little help when they are having a hard time growing, and let them adjust the environment. Yes, get through this." Ashu Isong sensed Gretel's mental fluctuations and the changes in the penicillium in the bottle, and remained silent. Gretel spread his hands to her. This was done by an elder over in Nevis, with a few natural priests who were at level 5 or 6, and the lowest were apprentices. After the elders determined the production needs, they just communicated and maintained them, even if they were apprentices can be completed. Ash Moonsong glanced quickly at Gretel. The look in his eyes was extremely complicated, including surprise, admiration, and a little bit of complaint. Greet knew what she was thinking without asking. "Yes, with my level of natural communication, I can maintain this production line. Sister Uge, give it a try, it's not difficult." AI-11 Uge took a long breath, lowered his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. He concentrated his mental power to an extremely subtle level and meditated with all his strength. Soon, she nodded. "It's really not difficult. Well, their power is very subtle, and what they want is very simple. As long as you gather your mind and calm down, you can listen to their needs." As he spoke, he looked far away, lost in thought. It turned out that those subtle sounds she heard when she was in the forest, those sounds coming from the earth, the soil, the water flow and the bark of the trees, were these things. These bacteria. Sister Uge, if you can communicate with penicillium, it shouldn't be difficult to communicate with cells. Understand what they want, what they hate, when they are about to die, when they feel better, just it's up to you. With that said, he put away the penicillin production line, emptied and washed the flasks, and pushed her towards the cell group. Pushed to the next door, called the group of magicians who were in charge of the experiment, and explained to the female elf. "Our idea is mainly to simulate the growth environment and conditions of cells inside the body so that they can continue to grow. Currently, the main preservation solution used is the special preservation solution of Black Crow Swamp. Sometimes they can grow smoothly, but then stop growing after a few days. Using ideas like rot sac swelling or rot sac explosion of the necromantic system can promote rapid growth of cells. However, as soon as the spell stops, they will stop growing immediately. Moreover, even if the spell does not stop, they will die soon." A trace of disgust flashed in AI-11 Uge's eyes. Seeing Gretel clasping his hands together and trying hard to shake up and down, he finally endured it and continued to listen to the necromancer's explanation. "The problem now is that we don't know what they like, what they want, and what will kill them if we put it in. We have to wait until the cells in the bottle are almost dead before we know something is wrong. It would be great if we could know right away," he said and pointed forward with his hand. The experimental table made of glass and stainless steel was filled with bottles and jars, labeled with a bunch of labels that Ashu Edge recognized many of the words in, but didn't recognize them at all when they were put together. In addition to those bottles and jars, There are also a variety of flasks, measuring cups, and droppers. Flame blowtorches, pots for boiling water. If it weren't for cultivating cells, at a glance, Ashuedge would almost have thought it was a pharmacy where the elders of Elf Island prepared potions, or a kitchen where food was cooked. Of course, the two are somewhat similar. The leader of the cell team is still smiling flatteringly. We can only feel that they are dying, or are already dead, and we can't feel what they want. It would be great if you could help point the direction. All the potions here, use them as you like, try them as you like. Ashuedge closed her eyes slightly. She focused her mental energy on the flask in front of her and truly felt the life force in the flask. Some are active, some are shrunken, and some are dying. She nodded affirmatively. No problem. I'm here to help you. The cell group leader breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God, someone finally helped. He heard from the people in the egg team next door that this boss was very good at sensing the breath of life. So far, their cell group has burned the most resources, produced the least results, and is being laughed at all day long. Even though the Plague Lord spoke for them at every regular meeting, he couldn't stop them from producing any results at all. Greet breathed a huge sigh of relief. Thank God, this elf boss was finally fooled. Raising cells is not an easy job. In fact, this job is extremely difficult. From when he was in graduate school to when he started working, he listened to the discussions of his classmates, colleagues, and newly recruited doctors. Oh, it's dead again. Oh, it's dead again. Ah, it's well cared for. Just change the liquid and bottle and it will die. Ah. There are still ready-made culture solutions, ready-made recipes, and ready-made operating procedures. Some people are well raised, and some people are just hard-working people who will die if they are raised well. Of course, the latter either went to clinical practice or went in other directions. In current research institutes, standard culture solution is required but not standard culture solution, trypsin is required but not pancreatin, amino acids are required but not amino acids, and dimethyl sulfoxide is not required. What? Do you need calf serum to grow cells? Where are the standard breed, purpose-bred calves? Bison doesn't count. The descendants of the white-horned king, or the bison wandering on the grasslands, don't count. Blood from calves aged 20 days or younger has been collected, mixed in batches, sterile filtered with a 0.1 μm micropore filter, and packaged into serum. The endotoxin content is lower than a certain standard. Sorry, we do not have that. Gretel started this project just in the hope that the magicians might be able to use magic to get around it. Of course, another advantage of having the elf forest guard come in now is that she probably won't have time to learn the transformation technique after him. Sister Uge, please take your time and let me know when the results come out. Well, if we don't use magical detours, or if the magical detours are not powerful enough, we can conservatively estimate that it won't be possible in a year and a half. Slipping away. Gretel. You should learn the transformation technique well. When I'm done today, I'm going to check your progress. The voice of the elven forester caught up. Greet slipped out, waving back as he did so. I know. Wait for me to think about it, wait for me to study and study. Once I understand it through study, I will study again. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @RedCometMars for the reward of 6,000 starting coins. Thanks to @ChongJenbring for the 1,500 starting coins reward. Boss, there are huge rewards for Apple mobile phones. Please use the web version next time. The mobile version will be deducted a lot by Apple, and it will arrive 3 months later. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1040. It's not that Gretel doesn't want to learn the art of transfiguration, It doesn't matter if he has too many skills, transfiguration is still quite useful in certain situations. For example, when moving in a dense forest, the Black Panther form is more useful than the human form. For example, when flying, flapping its wings in the bird form seems to be easier than using the flying spell of a magician, and it is flexible enough. As for escape and counterattack, there is no doubt about the usefulness of transfiguration in these situations. The exciting transformation battle between Sun Dashan and Erlang Shen is something that no Chinese will ever forget. And, turning into a silver dragon and flying side by side with Cyrilla, the ultimate temptation. But Gretel wanted to learn at his own pace. In other words, instead of being pressed on the head and saying change now, you need to first understand the principles of transformation and then do it step by step. Otherwise, what if the deformation goes wrong? What if the limbs become distorted, deformed, injured, or even irreversible? What's worse, what if the organs are twisted, deformed, or injured? The inner diameter of a black panther's cardiovascular system is not necessarily the same as that of a human being. Let me see. In front of Gretel, two silent phantoms, one on the left and one on the right, unfolded at the same time, slowly rotating in sync. Greet glanced left and right, constantly comparing. From rabbits to goats, changes in the shape of the skull, changes in the shape of the teeth, the spine is enlarged and elongated, the ribs are elongated, the limbs are elongated in proportion. So difficult. How can one casting action control so many things at the same time? Or is it simply a change that starts at the DNA level? Let me run identify bloodline to see if the race read by the spell is the same between the blood before and after the transformation. Gretel, how are you doing with your training? Cyrilla poked her head in and asked happily. Gretel frowned and shook his head at her. I haven't studied it yet. Wait a minute, let me look through some more information. Theoretically, he could also take the path of regardless of principles and methods, memorize by rote, and forcefully cast spells who can master all magic. You should study the unique spells that you are most comfortable with, and study them carefully. General spells should be memorized by rote, as long as you can use them. As for rote memorization, it has no power and will hinder advancement. Anyway, you don't rely on these spells to advance. But Gretel didn't want that when it came to transfiguration. Unlike fireball spells and shelter huts, transformation spells are, after all, spells that are used on oneself. If you don't study and understand, the deformation cannot be accurate and smooth, and you will suffer the consequences at your own risk. Gretel hugged the oak staff tightly and closed his eyes. His consciousness connected with the oak staff and he sank into meditation. The experiences of his predecessors were continuously passed on. Transformed into a reindeer, running happily in the forest, the breeze blew past my ears. When I saw the fresh weeds, I couldn't help but want to take a bite. Transforming into a gray wolf, with a low vision, the feeling of four legs stepping powerfully on the ground, a much sharper sense of smell than when in human form, stepping lightly on the ground, the feeling of lightness when running long distances. Transformed into a black bear, the muscles all over the body bulged, and it felt like it was about to explode. He stood up in the forest, wrestled with a wild deer, and slapped the deer's neck with a rounded palm. Even become an oak tree, take root in the earth, taste the fertility and barrenness of the soil, taste the sunshine, rain, and breeze. It's a completely different feeling than being a human being. It can even be said that after learning the art of transformation, one can enjoy more freedom and experience than a mere human being. But among the memories left by our predecessors, there are also many failed experiences, as well as risks and warnings. When deforming for the first time, every muscle and every bone felt like tearing pain. After the transformation is successful, you can't change back. You can only whine pitifully and go to the instructor for guidance and help. After the transformation was released, there was still a tail left that could not be eliminated. Not to mention, in the memories of many seniors, there are figures of companions who were too painful when they first transformed, panicked, and died of losing control of their spells. Gretel doesn't want this. Even if he wants to learn the art of transformation, he still wants to find a reliable senior to guide him, rather than a purely empirical person who can't explain the principle clearly and just pinches him and shouts, "Change! Change quickly! I don't want it!" Let me see, among the transformations of nature priests, they usually choose wolf and bear forms at first. Wolf shape accounts for about 45%, bear shape accounts for 30%, and some will choose deer shape and other forms. As for leopard shape, that is already relatively advanced. Greet rummaged through the memories of his predecessors. But no matter what form you choose, it must be something you are already familiar with and can describe it with your eyes closed, know its shape, its way of movement, and the characteristics of its muscle and bone activities. The better you are at deforming objects. The more familiar you are, the higher the success rate of transformation. So Sister Uge's guidance is simply not right. Throughout my life, I have never raised either a wolf or a bear, and I have never even raised a wild boar. Rabbits are the most dissected, followed by pigs. Basically, they are all domestic pigs, obtained from pig farms. Moreover, the dissection is not a complete dissection, but only a targeted dissection of certain parts. I have not observed their appearance or the way they move at all. If you ask me to transform now, I will definitely fail. Gretel muttered angrily. Most nature priests are close to nature. Starting from apprentices and level 1 priests, many of them have animal companions. Hug me when I want, touch me whenever I want, eat and live together every day. When it comes time to learn the art of transfiguration, the form of the animal companion is already deeply ingrained in the memory. In this way, there is still a certain chance of failure. I am not prepared at all, I will definitely not be able to learn. He sighed and stood up unsteadily. He has to study, he still has to study, his knowledge accumulation is still not enough, otherwise, why not find a wolf to dissect it? Or a bear? Is it easy for a wolf or bear to run in a tropical rainforest? Moreover, when trading World of Warcraft and performing human sacrifices before, I did not see the products of wolves and bears being traded. Greet thought for a moment, pulled out a piece of paper, and began to write. 1. Request the carcass of an adult leopard or adult wolf for dissection. You can ask for it from the Golden Eagle Warrior or the Snake Girl. I hope the Eagle God, the Snake God, and the leftover leopards are still there. 2. Ask the necromancers if anyone has the skeleton of an adult leopard or an adult wolf to borrow, preferably one that has already made a World of Warcraft skeleton soldier and can run. 3. Let the mage tower hang up the task, go catch a leopard, or catch a wolf. Are there wolves here? If you really can't catch it, you have no choice but to choose a big dog. In the country of eagles, there are still quite a lot of dogs. Oh, if it is a living body, there is no need to dissect it. It can be kept directly. X-rays can be used to see the bones, and B ultrasound can be used to see the organs. Gretel filled up a piece of paper and left it on the table, ready to come back and read it again. After thinking and planning, he headed out. Stepping out of the door, he yelled oops and backed up suddenly. Cirilla! Gretel, can't you figure out how to transform? Cirilla walked back and forth at the door, and the ground was almost smoothed by her as she walked back and forth. Seeing Gretel coming out, I happily jumped up to pull him. If you can't think of it, don't think about it. Let's go and relax. Anyway, people have done everything. Don't stay in the laboratory all the time and go out to have fun. You have been in the eagle country for so long, and you haven't done it yet. How many times have you played with me? Greet was pulled out by her obediently. Since the development of the yellow fever vaccine, in order to reduce the possibility of virus mutation, he has kept Sarala far outside the laboratory and not even allowed her to enter the research institute. The time spent with Sarala every day was even less than an hour. Sarala, who loves fun, and new things, flew back to the dragon's nest without leaving him behind, and she was already very good to him. Now that Sarara wants to play, of course he wants to accompany her. Where to go? Go. Sarara stood up straight, stretched out her arms, and stretched her index finger straight forward. Up, up, across an arc close to 90 degrees, pointing to the top of the high snow-capped mountains in the distance. Where to? What, climbing a snow mountain? Greet followed her and raised her head, raised her head, raised her head hard. At the end of the line of sight, the conical mountain peaks stand alone in the world, overlooking thousands of mountains. Halfway up the mountains, they are all covered with white snow. If the average altitude of the plateau is 2,000 meters, he has not seen anyone suffering from altitude sickness, and the snow line is 5,000 meters, then the peak of this mountain is probably not 7,000 meters. Sarara, you think too highly of me. Let's go. Sarala pulled him hard. This mountain is not high. Even an airship can fly up there. I've been playing there every day these days. Let's fly up together. If you can't fly anymore, I'll carry you. Greet couldn't defeat her, so she had to use the flying technique. However, the mage's flying technique has its limits, and it seems that it is difficult to fly up to the snow line. Panting, he watched Sarala relax and keep going up, throwing him further and further away. The silver dragon girl flew for a while, became a little impatient, and turned back to pull him. Gretel! Stop using flying. Where is your dragon flying cloak? Take it out. Gretel really felt that his flying skills could no longer hold up. He landed carefully, stopped on the snow, found the dragon flying cloak and put it on his shoulders. The magic flowed, and a pair of golden red wings suddenly spread out from behind, wide, strong, and hot. Oh ho! Take off! Sarala shouted from the side. Gretel calmed down, controlled the wings, and flapped them gently. The air flow under his feet swirled, and the snowflakes rolled down. Greet rose up little by little, 3 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters above the ground. Gretel! Fly! Let's fly! Not far away from him, Sarala also spread a pair of wings. The silver light was brilliant, with clouds and snowflakes flowing on the surface, and it looked larger than Greet's pair. After 2 gentle pats, he had risen to the same height as Gretel. He smiled and pointed forward. Gretel, let's fly up together. The two stood side by side, flapping their wings, all the way up. The white snow reflects the sunlight on Sarara's face, and the silver dragon girl's smile is brighter than the snow light. Breaking through the clouds and mist, breaking through the cold current, the snow-capped peaks become lower all the way under your feet. It seemed that not long after, the two stood on the top of the snow-capped mountains, holding hands, overlooking the mountains below. Greet, you see, transformation is not difficult, isn't it? Sarala smiled like a flower, grabbed the dragon wings transformed by the dragon flying technique, and flicked it gently. It's not uncomfortable or painful for your pair of dragon wings to grow out of your back, right? Greet was suddenly startled. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Today's new editions are so bad, so bad, so bad, I feel like today's average bookings are not stable and are about to fall. I'm crying. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1041. Gretel stood on the top of the snowy peak in a daze. He lowered his head, folded the dragon's wings, and reached his eyes with the tips of the wings. Grab it, squeeze it, rub it, shake it, pinch it a little. Ouch! Sarara, why are you pinching so hard? Pain. Did you change it yourself? Sarala stood shoulder to shoulder beside him, huge silver wings spread high, casting a shadow above the two of them. She reached out and touched the golden red dragon wings, blew on them, and then scratched them quickly. Stop. It's itchy. The golden red dragon wings, which were transformed from the dragon flying technique, shook even more violently, almost shaking Greet into the crater. Sarala quickly grabbed him. That's right, right? These wings are part of you, right? Do you want to look at the bones inside? Or, do you want to touch them with your backhand? How are these wings connected to your body? Gretel. He really turned on detection magic. Standing face to face with Sarala, the silver dragon girl's vigorous magical brilliance was so bright that it shone directly through the skin of the dragon's wings. From thick to thin, the bones connected one by one came into his meditation vision. By waving the wings slightly, you can clearly see the movement of the bones, and you can also feel the contraction and relaxation of the muscles on the back, and the joints connected to the shoulder blades rotate back and forth. Forward flexion, backward extension, adduction, abduction, internal rotation, external rotation, 6 directions of rotation. The joints connecting the wings and the shoulder blades have a lot of freedom. No, the key is not this, the key is. This is my own body. It's my own body, transformed, these wings are part of me. This transformation was successful, and it was neither painful nor dangerous. I just used magic equipment to stimulate my own power, and then it was successful, and it was reversible, safe and reversible. Gretel waved his wings and repeatedly felt the dragon wings transformed by the dragon flying technique several times before finally cancelling the spell. Feeling the magic power slowly shrinking, the powerful dragon wings retracted little by little, the bones, muscles, skin. It shrinks, disappears, and returns to a normal human being with 2 arms and 2 shoulders carrying a head. Gretel touched the back of his neck with his backhand, then his shoulders, took a long breath, and raised a smile. Sarala, where is the most fun place on the top of the mountain? I'll go play with you. You study first, don't be in a hurry. Sarala also withdrew her silver wings and stood there with a smile as bright as a flower. She stood on tiptoes, spread her arms, and spun lightly. Would you like me to change my wings again so you can see? Or if I transform into a silver dragon and back again, I can show you how the transformation works. Need not. Greet inhaled deeply, exhaled deeply, and smiled at Sarala. He took 2 steps forward and took Sarala's hand. I don't want to do this today. I came out to climb the mountain today just to play with you. Where is the fun on the top of this mountain? Do you want to accompany you down to the mountain pass and let's have a snowball fight? Snowball fights aren't fun anymore, Sarala laughed happily. She held Gretel's right hand with her backhand and pulled him aside. Look, standing here, you can see the sea. Give yourself the eagle eye spell, and you can see the sea directly. Come and see. Greet stood on tiptoes, walking 1 foot higher and the other lower on the crater, which was rugged and full of ice and snow. She was led around a small circle by Sarala, facing the east, looking far into the distance. The plateau spreads out beneath your feet. There are many barren mountains, and many of the mountains closest to them are also covered with snow. From a distance, it looks like they are on the top of silvery white waves. At the end of the silver waves are yellow-brown waves, which are lower in position and more gently undulating, beating forward one after another. Extending halfway, it suddenly turned into a deep emerald green, dotted with patches and wisps of white flowing clouds. And when the greenery is pushed to the end, there is a vast and boundless ocean, reflecting the high sky, and it is strangely blue. Gretel equipped himself with the eagle eye spell and looked far into the distance. He was speechless for a long time. Sarala stood beside him, also looking at the sea intently, for a long time, and sighed. When can I just fly over and dive into the sea? This distance is neither too short nor too long for her. Transform back into a silver dragon and sprint at full speed. You can go back and forth in half a day, of course, not counting the time it takes to catch fish in the sea. The problem is, she flew over to play by herself and left Gretel here, which was very bad. Gretel, well, let's wait until I learn to turn into a silver dragon. I'm afraid I need to be an adult dragon. Transforming into a juvenile dragon won't be able to keep up with your speed, but an adult dragon seems to need a magic reserve, at least 16, level 17 can make do with a change. It's been so long. Cyrilla also knew that it was not easy to learn to transform into a dragon, so she just sighed, unable to hide the disappointment in her tone. Without waiting for Greet to be comforted, she became active again, holding Greet and continuing to circle. By the way, there is another interesting place here. When the clouds and fog rise on the mountain, sometimes you can see your own shadow. Well, the clouds and fog are not big enough today. She looked left and right, stretched out her hand to measure the height of the sun, stood on tiptoes, and turned to the direction opposite to the shadow of the sun. Gretel was still stretching his neck to see where there are clouds and mist when he saw Cyrilla jump dozens of steps away and suddenly transform into a dragon. Hold head high. A huge, clear dragon roar sounded. Following the roar of the dragon, the snow on the hillside vibrated, slid downwards, and suddenly rose up into snow mist. The snow and mist continued to soar, turning into soft clouds and mist, rising up layer by layer. Outside and inside the crater, clouds and mist rolled in like tides, framing the towering snow-capped mountains with a white skirt. Cyrilla lay on the mountain pass, breathing in the clouds. After a while, she suddenly turned back into a human body and waved to Gretel vigorously. Come on. Come on. Greet ran over step by step. After running for a few steps, I simply cheated and gave myself a flying skill, allowing me to fly very low and level. Flying to Sarah's side, she couldn't wait to wave and waved, pointing downwards. Look. The sun shone slantly, falling on them and on the clouds and mist below the hillside. Among the rolling clouds and mist, a colorful halo appeared. There is a figure in the middle of the halo. If you raise your hands will move. If you raise your feet will move. If you dance, the figure will also dance. Gretel couldn't help but smile. Whether it was by mistake or because she had enough experience, Cyrilla was able to even create the golden-domed Buddha's light. Well, it's not easy to call it Buddha's light in this place. What should we call it? Come on, Gretel. Just as she was thinking, Cyrilla reached out her hand and dragged Gretel down. The two stood shoulder to shoulder, and the halo was straight and enveloping the two people. Come on, let's get together. Raise your hands. Raise your left hand. Raise your right hand. Tilt your head, head to head. You raise your left hand, I raise my right hand, and we put them together. Put them together and hook them inwards. The two waved, tilted their heads, raised their arms, and the pair of figures in the halo also moved their hands and feet, moving non-stop. Finally, he raised his arms high to form a big heart shape, enclosing the two people's heads in the middle. These actions were considered childish, but they were extremely childish, but Cyrilla happily pulled Gretel and played with her over and over again. Even the smile on Gretel's face never faded from the beginning to the end. Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun? The two of us are in the same circle. Well, that's great. Cyrilla's ability to control the clouds and mist is really great. He, it's a pity that the clouds and mist can't be taken away. Even if the clouds and mist are taken away, the mountains and the sun can't be taken away. I really want to pick out this aperture and take it away. My meditation core has been recorded. I'll go back down the mountain and ask Tailing to make one. Would it be too much trouble? No trouble at all. Cyrilla played for a long time before she was satisfied and waved away the clouds. After a moment, She laughed loudly, hugged Gretel, jumped up, and smashed the snow in the crater. Gretel! Come and make snowballs. Come and have a snowball fight. Come on. Wait a minute. Let me add agility to myself. Add defense. Add dash. Boom. Cyrilla, don't stuff the snowball into my neck. On this day, the two of them played on the top of the mountain until the red sun went down and completely fell into the horizon, and then they flew down to the top of the mountain side by side. When they arrived at the institute, it was already dark. Greet finished his dinner without any taste, then spread out his pen and paper to write and draw. The spell model of transfiguration. The spell model of basic dragon form. The spell model of lesser dragon form. The spell model of dragon soaring technique. As he drew, his hand holding the pen moved faster and faster, and his eyes shone with excitement. Transfiguration, whether it is full transformation or partial transformation, some of the spell structures are exactly the same. The different parts, maybe the object of change is different, maybe. But no matter what, the basis is the same. All changes are guided by magic. As for the target of change, part of it is guided by magic, and part of it should be the shapeshifter himself, who knows what he wants to become. Then, as long as you are familiar with the goal of your change, accept it from the bottom of your heart, and even desire this change, the stronger your will, the better, then you can successfully transform. Gretel shook his hand hard. The next goal is to find someone to imitate, study it diligently, and become familiar with it until you can change smoothly and without hindrance. So, which goal should you choose? Let's publish the requirements first, and put them together in the Institute's demand list. Anyway, I am the host, so it won't be a problem to get some funds. As for turning into a leopard or a leopard, to transform into a wolf, it depends on which material arrives first. Greet thought confidently. He went out for a walk, handed the written list of materials to Master Zhonings, and asked him to hang out together. When he returned to his residence, he suddenly stopped and bent down to pick up a black cat. Mr. Trochka, I haven't played with you for a long time. Come on, show me how big you are. If you change, I'll give you delicious food. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thank you at Money for coaxing you to reward me with 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1042. Mr. Trochka, you have grown a little bigger, you can turn into a black panther, right? I think your power structure is almost completed, right? Meow. How about making it smaller? Mr. Trochka's kitten form has always been very cute. Look, this is the big fish Celera caught from the Storm Islands. I specially left a small dried fish for you. Meow. Then, shall I play with you for a while? Come on, grab this feather. Grab it. Meow. Greet discussed tirelessly, or cajoled, or offered small dried fish as bribes, but all he got was Mr. Trochka's group there, and there was no sound of a soft scream. The cat doesn't want to transform, or in other words, it doesn't want to waste the power it has so easily repaired to become bigger or smaller, a leopard or a kitten. The golden feather of the eagle god is so rich in power and essence that it has only seen it in its life. It will seize this opportunity to reach a higher level. Besides, I am the great Mr. Trochka. It's a noble monster. Not a cat? Dare you steal my golden feather? Although he was just dangling it in front of me, teasing me to grab it, he actually dared to pull this precious golden feather out from under my paws. Meow fishnet claw. Wow. Gretel scurried away with his head in his arms. After failing to pick up the cat, and there was no other animal to analyze for the time being, Gretel had no choice but to huddle in the laboratory and study hard. Study the transfiguration information in the council, and also study the transfiguration experience passed down by the nature priests. Analyze, compare, think, experiment. What? Study rabbits and mice? Observe their shapes, dissect their bodies, understand every inch of them, and imprint their details in your heart? Never. What kind of fighting power do these two forms have? No fighting power, no speed, no special abilities, nothing. Learning the art of transformation is to enhance your survival ability or combat effectiveness, not to cause trouble for yourself. Anyway, when the wolf, or leopard, or wolf carcass or leopard carcass he placed the order comes, he will just slowly study and observe. Sharpening the knife will keep you from chopping wood. The dean moved his mouth and broke his legs. Greed handed over a piece of paper lightly, and the researchers of the institute, the presiding mages and assistants of the mage tower, and the soldiers of the eagle kingdom began to get busy. There are no living wolves. There are no live leopards. Whether it is the eagle god or the snake god, they all eat blood. In other words, they not only eat the souls of those monsters, but also their bodies. The eagle god eats more reservedly, pecking open the skull, eating the brain, and eating the heart. Then he held the corpse under his claws and pecked at it bit by bit, tearing out every bit of muscle and swallowing it. At least there was still a set of bones left. Snake gods are more straightforward. They are swallowed with the skin and bones in one bite, and slowly digested after swallowing. Of course, after digestion, there will be residues excreted, but whether the whole bones or residues are excreted, then, it depends. Besides, even if there were bones, they would have ended up in the burial pit, mixed with human bones, broken bones of other animals, and broken pottery figurines. Want to dig them out completely? Might as well catch a live one. It was under these circumstances that Takomond entered the jungle. He and his son joined the White Ghosts in attacking the Eagle Kingdom and were defeated and captured. They originally thought they would be dragged away as a human sacrifice, but after being detained for a period of time, they were sent to the Research Institute. After being locked up in the institute for a few more months, they were suddenly dragged out and said to be his daughter's sweetheart. Tupakamaru invited a big boss to intercede, and the owner of the institute planned to release them. However, they didn't release it immediately. Everyone pulled it out, poked it with the strange tube, and pushed some cold liquid in. After being imprisoned for 2 days, he was pulled out again and his legs were bitten by mosquitoes. He was imprisoned for a few more days. "You can leave," a white ghost wearing a black robe and a serious face led them to the door and pointed outward. "We have made an agreement with the people of Eagle Country that they will not take you back again. It's only for this time. We won't care if you do something wrong next time." The father and son walked down the hillside cautiously, walked into the city of Tenok, and then walked out of the city. Sure enough, they were not arrested. However, when I returned to the tribe, it was like a thunderbolt. The best warriors of the tribe were captured. The strongest men have been captured. The only ones left were the old and the weak, women, children and girls, and slaves. They huddled in the fence of the village, even going out together to fetch water, and they dared not go out when it got dark. The cornfield and pumpkin patch outside the fence were ruined by wild beasts in the jungle. The east part was crooked and the west part was full of big holes. Just like this, no one in the village dared to plant. Want to redeem others? Yes, he returned to Tenok City, and the mage in the mage tower told him. You can also want warriors from other tribes, weapons, armors, scrolls, and medicines. We are open to trade here. Of course, you have to exchange things. Tribal land? Takomond was reluctant to part with it. Even if it is a jungle, it is a jungle that belongs to their tribe. It is their hunting ground, the place where they gather medicine, and where their young warriors gain experience. Every inch of expansion of the jungle's boundaries was fought out by him, his father, his father's father, and the soldiers. Even if he signed a contract to give a piece of the jungle to these new white ghosts in exchange for the tribe's warriors, Takomond would not be willing to part with it. He could only settle for the next best thing. Is there anything else I can exchange for? Others. That's a lot. Warcraft, magic plants, mineral deposits, medicinal materials, all kinds of things. By the way, there is an urgent order recently. Once you finish it, you can redeem the person immediately. What? Catch a few monsters. Takomon sets out into the jungle with his son. He could barely defeat leopards, as long as they were not the strongest ones, and his son would definitely be able to defeat them. It's better than selling your land, and better than selling your body. However, not long after entering the jungle, he discovered a group of white ghosts with their faces painted in stripes and their bodies wrapped in various colors, sneaking into the forest. Takomon sniffed and followed quietly. That gang. He remembers the gang. Those are the white ghosts who are different from the people in the institute. That group of people, with a strong smell of sea and wine, and round accessories with sun ray patterns hanging around their necks, came to them and tricked them into attacking Tenok City. So many people were killed, so many people were captured, so many people were sent to the pyramids, their hearts were dug out, and their heads were chopped off. They actually have the nerve to come. How dare they come? Follow me. Takomon gestured to his son to cover him from both sides and get behind the white ghosts. Seize one, seize two, preferably all, and take them to Tenok City and hand them over to the new group of white ghosts. If you exchange one for another, I wonder how many warriors of their tribe can be exchanged. It would be great if there was more detailed information and a more important figure could be caught. A week later, the Archmage Tower in Tenok City received two unexpected gift packages. The new governor has arrived. Archmage Hines was pulled out of the research institute and attended the meeting of mages. 1 level 18, 2 level 15, and a group of mages above level 10, level 7 or 8 gathered in a circle, looking at the large map projected by the tower spirit. Supposedly, it's almost time, the rainy season here has ended, and the Storm Islands have also entered a rare period of calm. If the new governor takes office, he should come at this time, so what are they going to do? The results of the torture of the prisoners and the intelligence collected at the port pointed out. A level 5 magic control mage beside the host of the mage tower calmly issued a report. The new governor has no plans to go to war for the time being. In fact, the current military strength of the governor's office does not allow them to organize a large army to attack us again. However, the current governor's office has plans to indulge pirates and plunder ports and indigenous people. This is quite troublesome. The mage tower at the port has only level 10 mages. With the mage tower, it can only resist attacks from level 12 to 13. If they detect the truth and send a few experts to pull out the nails, we will be very passive. Looting is even more troublesome. We can't control the long coastline at all. It's okay to just grab a few indigenous villages. The problem is, we have already opened 3 plantations here, and we will open 10 more in the future. We have already scouted several places and signed contracts with the indigenous people. Should we be proactive? Don't be ridiculous. With our current strength, it is already difficult to defend our own territory. How can we take the initiative? I have an idea. Didn't we make a yellow fever vaccine and use epidemic technique to vaccinate a large area? Send a mage who knows epidemic technique to the Storm Islands to kill the yellow fever disease, spread the factors. In an instant, all the mages present, except for the 2 necromancers, gave Lingling a shiver. Yellow fever, yellow fever. This plague is famous in the Eagle Country and the Storm Islands. A good person can develop high fever, fall on the bed, turn yellow all over, and start vomiting black blood within a few days. When its sickle passes by, it is not impossible for a city to lose 1/10 or even more of its people. In the Storm Islands, people respect the devil responsible for this disease as the King in Yellow. If a ship has an infected person, it must fly a special yellow flag and be quarantined outside the port for 40 days. During this period, if anyone dares to disembark, whether it is a sailor or a passenger, he will be shot to death by the port guards. The method is a good one. Archmage Hines leaned forward, crossed his fingers, and supported his chin. Without waiting for the face of the person who made the suggestion to show joy, he let out a long, leisurely sigh. It's a pity that it can't be done. Why? Because each of us has sworn an oath. Everyone who comes here, everyone who enters the Institute. Swear to the secret. We must not use what we know and learn to kill or hurt people, but can only use it to treat illnesses and save people. There was a moment of silence in the meeting room of the Mage Tower. For a moment, in the corner, several mages whispered. It's the Lord of Plague again. Yes, there will be no one else but him. Those who tie their hands and feet. It's okay if you don't take the initiative. In the silence, Archmage Jennings, a disciple of Archmage Hines, quietly made a suggestion. We can universally vaccinate the indigenous people below the plateau, and universally vaccinate the adventurers from Nevis. Others, can we just lead them into the jungle, turn them around a few times, and then put them back? Yes, the atmosphere suddenly became lively. The magicians spoke one after another. Those pirates go into the jungle and go back by themselves. It's not necessarily us who harmed them. You can also put some monkeys in the jungle. Those who have been bitten by disease-carrying mosquitoes. I saw in the paper that if you are scratched by a disease-carrying monkey, you will also get sick. You can also release a group of mosquitoes. Or use disease insect swarm to summon mosquitoes and let them bite the monkeys. This can't be considered killing or injuring people, right? It's okay to put some water bags with mosquito eggs on the pirate ship. By the way, don't let the Lord of Plague know about these things. Gretel, who didn't hang out in the city or go to the Mage Tower to chat, didn't know what the governor's mansion had done and how the magicians planned to respond. He plunged into the research institute and spent day and night with the monsters sent by the natives. I am addicted to petting cats and have no intention of going out. Sister Uge, please talk to this Black Panther again. Let it not bite me. I have no ill intentions toward it, I just want to observe its shape. It didn't want to bite you, it was just playing with you, and why didn't you say it yourself? Where are your animal communication skills? Have you fed the dog? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. I saw a new book recommended in the new chapter of Above the Sky that I have been following, so I took a look. It's a bit delicious, but these days, I'm a fool to dare to write about transformation. Although it looks like a light novel, it can actually be classified as fantasy. I hope the big guys don't take advantage of the traffic of fantasy to compete with me for ranking. I'm trembling. Post an introduction. Bible of Blood. Standing in front of you is Overseer and Protector of Darkness, the Subverter and Reshaper of Order, the Creator and Persecutor of Dog-licking, Tea-Master, Goddess of the Night, Nightmare of the Gods and Gravedigger, the true ancestor of blood Charlotte de Castel. Accompany with madness, live with blood, join hands with curse, and walk with destruction. This is a legend belonging to the Blood Clan. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1043. Chapter 1040. Gretel, I change. I change. I want to become. Greed was driven around by the leopard as it bit his trouser legs, dragged his sleeve corners, and attacked his chest. Gretel was busy feeding, pouring water, combing, and tickling the leopard all the time. Gretel ran with the leopard, but was left behind by the leopard, panting on his knees. Gretel climbed the tree with the leopard, but was left far behind by the leopard. The leopard swayed its tail and puffed out its tongue to breathe at him, as if it was mocking him. Gretel. In short, Greet and the leopard ate, lived, and hunted together, and they observed each other for a while. During his free time, when the leopard ignored him, he squatted next to him and stroked his fur, and turned on detection magic to observe the bones and magic flow in the leopard's body. All these things took me a long time. When Ashuej felt that she had finally found a way to nourish cells, which could last for 3 days without dying even after changing the bottle, Gretel finally felt that he was almost ready. Sister Uge, can you do me a favor? Watch me practice my transformation. If something goes wrong, can you help me stop it? Of course, wait a minute, I'll make an order for you. It was a big deal for Gretel to practice transfiguration. For this exercise, they specially left the institute and found an open space in a green grassy valley. Sarah, Bernard, Apa, Lin and Mr. Valenchimo were all present. As for Archmage Heinz and his apprentice Archmage Jannings, although these two did not come forward, in the words of Archmage Heinz, our presence is too strong and we are afraid of disturbing you, so we will not show up. But Greet turned around and looked. On the nearby row of trees and in the bushes opposite, there are flashes of arcane eyes. What are those? Those were all installed by you, right? Does this mean that I want to observe my deformation from all directions and angles, and if possible, make a 3-dimensional animation and save it? Fortunately, the mystic eye was not disturbed very much, and Gretel didn't care. The process of his transformation was filmed. Wearing a loose burlap robe and bare feet, he walked slowly into the grass. In the distance, Ash Moonsong was explaining to Cyrilla in a low voice. When transforming, the less constrained the body, the better, and the closer to nature, the better. He used to wear layers of underwear, coats, socks, and shoes, which will reduce the success rate of the transformation. But the long grass on the ground is very itchy. Cyrilla kicked off her shoes, ground her bare feet on the grass, and then held a piece of long grass between her toes and pulled it out. She felt a slight itch on the soles of her feet, and she laughed. It's so itchy. What should I do if I'm distracted by being tickled while walking, sitting, or lying down? If I can't concentrate, won't it cause the spell to fail? Generally speaking, nature's servants don't have such problems, but little Greet's situation is a bit exception. Don't worry, I have already thought of it. The weeds in this place are the softest and most tender. That kind of. She explained a few more words to Cyrilla while looking at Greet from a distance. Watching him walking around on the grass, his expression became more and more relaxed and peaceful, and he nodded secretly. This is the right state. Only by expanding your body and mind to the maximum extent and immersing yourself in nature can you receive the gifts of nature to the maximum extent. Don't separate yourself from nature. Human form and animal form are, in the final analysis, children of nature. Finally, Greet found a place with the flattest ground and the softest grass blades, and sat down cross-legged. Slowly close your eyes and regulate your breathing. After a while, he stretched out his hand and pressed it on the grass. The grass rustled and grew rapidly. A very useful little trick. Ashuej looked at it from a distance, nodded and smiled. Servers of nature don't know how to bring their clothes with them when they transform for the first time, and they often tear their clothes. Either they find a dense forest without people, or they summon long grass to cover themselves. She scratched the leopard's chin, causing the beast to let out a soft gurgling sound in its throat. After scratching, he stood up and smiled at Cyrilla. I passed. The elf forester, a veteran warrior and master of transfiguration, walked over lightly. He knelt down in front of Gretel, stretched his body slightly, raised his hand and pressed his forehead. As promised before, I will guide you in your first transformation. Don't panic, don't be afraid, relax your body and mind, and immerse yourself in nature. Remember, you are a part of nature, a child loved by nature, and nature will not harm you. The sound was soft and leisurely, like a piece of light mist in the forest, spreading silently. Before being discovered, it had moisturized everyone's bodies and minds, allowing them to relax comfortably. Greet also relaxed. The mind becomes quiet and peaceful little by little, just like every predecessor walking on the road of nature, leaving only a little bit of the most fundamental consciousness, fully integrated with nature. Then, the power of nature quietly wrapped up. It's like standing barefoot in a hot spring, as the warm water gradually rises and fills the whole body. The pores are opened, the muscles are relaxed, and the muscles and bones are lazy. I just want to close my eyes and melt into the spring water. Notice. A small, very distant consciousness communicated. Gretel gathered some energy and connected with that consciousness. The consciousness is soft, but extremely firm, like the sound of wind lingering in the forest, and like the sound of strings singing at a concert. Think about the goal of your transformation, think about what you plan to transform into, strengthen your will, gather enough hope and desire. Greet meditated as he was told. When his mind was concentrated to the highest point, a gentle but very powerful force came and began to guide him to change. The shape of the skull changes, the spine flattens, the pelvis deforms, the limbs fall to the ground, grow tough claws and sharp nails, thick hair and a long tail. Finally, Gretel raised his front paws, looked at the pads on his feet, and let out a confused ouch. Is this the end of the change? So the transformation was successful? Already turned into a leopard? He took 2 steps in place, tripped on his right front foot and right back foot, and almost fell down on the spot. Gretel tried his best to stand still, took 2 more steps, flicked his tail, and stumbled with his left hind foot. On the edge of the grass not far away, Chuck, the Warcraft Black Panther, who was specially captured to be Gretel's imitation object, slapped the ground with its tail, and let out a mocking sound from its throat. Aizewij opened her eyes, closed her eyes, opened her eyes again, and closed her eyes again, resisting the urge to grab the leopard's ears and roar, "Why are you such a bad guy?" On the contrary, she had to put on a smile and try hard to praise. "Okay, transform for the first time, that's it? Come on, I'll guide you to transform back, and then you try to transform independently for the first time. Do you remember the feeling of transforming just now? Remember?" Greet nodded vigorously. Ashu Isong knelt down in front of him again, pressing her palm on Gretel's forehead. Misty green light shot out from her palm and enveloped Gretel's body. For a moment, that warm, spring-like feeling filled the air again. When Ashmoonsong's hand left, Gretel had transformed from Black Panther form back to human form. Except for her hair, which was a little messy, the loose, sleeveless burlap robe was not even torn at the hem. "Well done," Ashuej smiled and praised. Although for a level 10 nature priest, transformation should be as natural as eating and drinking, but Gretel is a cub after all. He is still a cub who has lived among humans since he was a child and has never received orthodox education from elves. Praise should be given, so that he can be confident enough to transform better. Yes, it is like that. The transformation went well this time, Gretel. Your affinity for the power of nature is very good. Do you remember the transformation process? Can you try it yourself? Or, if you are not sure, we can try again next time. It should be okay this time. Gretel lowered his head, concentrated, recalled the process and feelings of the previous transformation and transformation back, and raised his head firmly. "Sister Uge, let me try it myself." "Good." The elf forest guard slowly stepped away and stood with Cyrilla and others. On the left is a black panther lying on the ground, the tip of its tail swaying slightly, and its eyes narrowed by Ashmoon Song. On the right is Sarala. The silver dragon girl is clenching her hands tightly and breathing rapidly. Ashmoon Song had to comfort her. Don't worry, it's okay, but don't be so nervous. If you release a little breath unconsciously, it may disturb him. A little further to the left, Lin held Mr. Trochka in his arms and stood up straight in the open space. Even Mr. Trochka stopped chewing the dried fish, propped up his forepaws, and stared at Gretel. To Sarah's right, Bernard took 2 steps to the left, then 2 steps to the right, bending down to support his knees with his hands, and straightening up again. Appa tried to move forward, but he grabbed his horns and pushed him back hard. Don't stand so far in front. Move back a little. Move back a little more. What if Gretel accidentally sees you and becomes crooked? Appa dug at the ground unwillingly, sprayed Bernard in the face, and backed away. In the middle of the grass, Greet glanced at his friends who were waiting nervously with a smile, closed his eyes, and activated the transformation technique again. Sink into nature, let nature guide me, I am nature's child, nature's darling, nature will not harm me. Determine the goal of transformation, outline a familiar image in your mind, gather your thoughts and make sure that your desire to transform is strong enough. Strengthen your will and believe that you will succeed. Release spells, communicate with nature, nature will guide you and change towards your goals. The warm power of spring water enveloped me. Bone changes, muscle changes, skin changes. At the moment when the deformation has begun and is fully advanced, a new image suddenly pops into my mind. A more beautiful, brighter, more brilliant figure. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @bookfriend2017061012033250 for the reward of 100 starting coins.